Samuel Goldwyn paid $1 million for the rights to Guys and Dolls, but he made one terrible mistake. He gave Marlon Brando the lead role that Frank Sinatra desperately wanted. What followed was months of sabotage, insults, and pure hatred between two of Hollywood's biggest stars. Sinatra called Brando Mumbles, while Brando tortured him with endless retakes. Their feud reached its peak during one innocent scene that turned into a nightmare. The story of what really happened behind the cameras would shock even Hollywood insiders. When Guys and Dolls came out on November 3, 1955, no one expected the happy musical to hide so much real-life drama. It was based on a Broadway hit that had run for 200 shows and even won the Tony for Best Musical. The movie took place in New York's shady gambling world. Frank Sinatra played a guy named Nathan Detroit, who needed $1,000 to set up an illegal dice game. He made a bet with another gambler, Sky Masterson, played by Marlon Brando. The deal was simple. Sky had to take a strict missionary named Sarah Brown, played by Gene Simmons, out on a date to Havana. It sounded like fun on the surface, but behind the scenes, things were falling apart. The real trouble started even before the cameras rolled. Samuel Goldwyn, the producer, paid $1 million just to get the rights to make the movie on December 31, 1953. That was the most anyone had ever paid at the time. He planned to make a huge hit. The film's total budget jumped to $5.5 million, which today would be about $60 million. Gene Kelly was supposed to play Sky Masterson, but MGM wouldn't let him go. So Goldwyn had to choose Marlon Brando instead. Brando had just won the Oscar for On the Waterfront in 1954 and was the biggest star in Hollywood. But there was one big problem. He couldn't sing. Frank Sinatra was furious. He believed Sky Masterson should have been his. He had been dreaming of that role for years. He had starred in 12 musicals by 1954, had won an Oscar for From Here to Eternity in March that year, and had made millions from Vegas shows. In 1955 alone, he was earning $100,000 every week in Las Vegas. He felt like the role of a slick gambler was perfect for him. He begged Goldwyn, even offered to take a pay cut from his usual $150,000 fee, and sang "Luck Be a Lady" perfectly during a 15-minute audition on October 20, 1954. But Goldwyn still went with Brando and gave Sinatra the secondary role of Nathan Detroit instead. Sinatra signed the deal on November 10, 1954, for $150,000, but he never really got over it. Brando, who had never done a musical before, had to take singing lessons. Sinatra mocked him constantly. He called him Mumbles because of the way he delivered lines. Brando didn't enjoy working with Sinatra either. He once said filming with Frank was like acting with a loaded gun. The tension got worse every day. Sinatra would prank Brando by hiding his scripts or messing with his food. On January 3, 1955, someone even spray-painted the word Mumbles on Brando's trailer. Everyone knew who did it. Vivian Blaine was brought back to play Adelaide, the same role she had played on stage since November 24, 1950. Marilyn Monroe and Betty Grable had both wanted the part. Monroe even called director Joseph L. Mankiewicz in May 1955, but he said no. For the role of Sarah Brown, Goldwyn tried to get Grace Kelly and Deborah Kerr, but they turned it down in early 1955. So he chose Gene Simmons, who had never done a musical. He later said she was a dream. Surprisingly, Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis were also considered for the lead roles in February 1955. But their egos got in the way. The budget was already exploding. Just the giant sewer set built in March 1955 for Luck Be a Lady cost $150,000. It even had running water and special lighting. The filming took place from March to July 1955. The sets looked amazing. New York streets, Havana nightclubs, and the flashy Hot Box Club with gold-plated props and 50 dancers who earned $200 per day. Brando was paid $200,000 and caused around $500,000 in extra costs because he needed over 200 takes for his songs. One of those scenes, shot on June 10, 1955, was If I Were a Belle, where Gene Simmons had to act drunk and sing at the same time, without any dubbing. Adelaide, a new song written just for Sinatra, was added on June 15, 1955, and cost another $100,000 in rewrites just to keep him happy. There were other big musical moments too. Sit Down, You're Rockin' the Boat was filmed on July 5, 1955, with Stubby Kaye leading 30 men. Fugue for Tin Horns opened the movie with funny lyrics about horse racing. There was also a romantic duet called A Woman in Love, written just for the film, but it ended up exposing Brando's weak voice. In 1955, Stephen Sondheim even called his singing colorless. Even though the movie looked fun and full of energy, it nearly broke the people behind it. By the time it hit theaters, it had made $9 million in rentals and $13 million domestically by 1956. Worldwide, it brought in $20 million. Brando's contract included 10% of the profits, so he might have earned $1 million in total. Sinatra's jealousy only got worse. He leaked to reporters on November 12, 1954, that Brando was too young at 31 to play Sky, while Sinatra was 39 and had lived the real life of a gambler. In September 1954, he even bragged in an interview that his Vegas charm was more real than Brando's brooding style. The feud caused at least 5 filming delays, costing $100,000. One day during rehearsal on January 10, 1955, Brando called Sinatra "Old Blue Eyes" and laughed in front of the crew. Sinatra didn't take it well. He skipped the cast party on December 5, 1954, and once smashed a hotel mirror in anger on November 15, 1954, leaving behind $500 in damage. In a radio interview on January 15, 1955, he said, "I could have sung those numbers in my sleep." He was still bitter when he spoke to friends on February 10, 1955, saying he would find ways to sabotage Brando on set. The press loved this rivalry. In 1955, over 20 articles compared Sinatra's 150 concerts in 1954 to Brando's 5 hit films. Sinatra believed Goldwyn had never wanted him from the start. Some insiders even said Goldwyn once told someone, "We need a wasp face for Sky," suggesting Sinatra's Italian background was the real reason he didn't get the part. By the time the film premiered, fans were already picking sides. Some even boycotted Brando's scenes, and it hurt the box office by around 10% in its early weeks. One morning in early 1955, inside Goldwyn Studios in Hollywood, Marlon Brando walked up to Frank Sinatra and politely asked for help. He knew Sinatra was a master of music, and Brando was about to sing in a movie musical for the first time. But instead of kindness, he got humiliation. Sinatra didn't just say no. He barked at him with a sneer. "Don't give me any of that actor's studio shit." Brando froze. His method acting, something he took seriously after training in New York, was mocked to his face. It wasn't just an insult. It was war. Brando had just won the Academy Award for On the Waterfront on March 30, 1955. Sinatra, who believed he should have been given the lead role in Guys and Dolls, hated the idea of playing second to Brando. His anger showed right away. He started calling Brando Mumbles because of his soft-spoken style. That mocking nickname stuck. When Brando struggled to hit his notes during the Luck Be a Lady rehearsal in February 1955, it only made things worse. Sinatra didn't offer support. He told crew members that Brando couldn't sing, and soon their rivalry turned into open sabotage. Filming officially began on March 1, 1955. It didn't take long for things to fall apart. Sinatra had his own rhythm. He wanted to rap by 6 p.m. sharp, not just once or twice, every single day. He had plans: Vegas shows, late-night parties, other recording sessions. If the clock hit 6:01 p.m. and cameras were still rolling, he walked. That's exactly what happened during a long day on May 15th, when Brando kept asking for more takes. Sometimes 30, even 40. Brando believed in emotional truth, even if it took all night. Sinatra thought it was madness. On April 20th, during the Havana scene, Sinatra left set mid-shoot. Reshoots ended up costing the studio $50,000 in overtime. Director Joseph L. Mankiewicz tried to compromise. He asked Brando to stop at 7 p.m., but Brando didn't budge. His scenes stretched past 8, and the filming that was supposed to end in July dragged on into August. Meanwhile, Sinatra was also recording songs for Swingin' Lovers, which would release in March 1956, so every delay pulled him in two directions. It wasn't just about ego anymore. It was costing everyone time and money. By late March 1955, Sinatra wasn't whispering insults anymore. He was shouting them. He told crew members that Brando's voice had to be dubbed over all 7 songs. On April 10th, he mocked Brando's singing by saying it sounded like a yak's mating call. Brando didn't stay quiet. On May 5th, during rehearsals, he snapped back. He told Sinatra he wasn't even a real actor. "You couldn't act your way out of a paper bag," he said. Sinatra hit harder. On June 15th, he leaked a story to the press claiming Brando needed 200 takes just for "luck be a lady." Brando answered in private, calling Sinatra balding and bitter. The hairpiece jokes stung, especially because everyone on set knew they were true. Sinatra kept using the Mumbles nickname at least 10 times on set, and Brando kept replying with lines like, "He's so bitter, he's giving God a hard time for making him bald." Their fight wasn't just behind closed doors. It bled into headlines, and by the time the film premiered on November 3, 1955, the public already sensed the tension. Director Mankiewicz was stuck in the middle. By April 18th, he had to separate their scenes. Brando would film close-ups on Mondays. Sinatra would film his on Tuesdays. For 12 different sequences, including the sewer craps game on May 20th, they used stand-ins just to avoid having them in the same frame. This added $75,000 to the budget and pushed the schedule 2 weeks behind. Even during key rehearsals in June, Mankiewicz had to physically keep them apart. Producer Samuel Goldwyn tried to help, arranging 3 private meetings between June 10th and June 20th. But nothing worked. They refused to even make eye contact. In a 1956 interview, Mankiewicz finally admitted that Brando's songs were sewn together from over 50 takes. That's how chaotic it had become. One of the most infamous moments came during a quiet little scene. In the movie, Nathan Detroit, played by Sinatra, eats a slice of cheesecake while making a bet with Sky Masterson, played by Brando. It's a calm moment on screen, but behind the scenes, it was the breaking point. Filmed at Samuel Goldwyn Studios in early 1955, the cheesecake scene was a setup for revenge. Brando knew that Sinatra hated cheesecake, hated it with a passion. After one perfect take, Brando started flubbing his lines on purpose. The more takes they did, the more cheesecake Sinatra had to eat. First it was 1 slice, then 2. By take 3, dated around April 15th, Brando pretended to forget the number of the bet. That added a 3rd slice, then a 4th when he mumbled the word Havana, then a 5th when he messed up pouring the coffee. That's 40 ounces of cheesecake. Brando smiled as Sinatra's chewing slowed down. On the 5th take, Sinatra muttered under his breath, "These fucking New York actors," and glared at Mankiewicz. The quote still shows up in TCM archives. Then came take 6. Brando accidentally spilled hot coffee across the table. It splashed Sinatra's suit and ruined the shot, a sixth slice. Then on take 7, Brando tripped over the words, "Luck be a lady tonight." That added slice 7. At 56 ounces, Sinatra's hands were shaking. On take 8, Brando faked a cough and spilled more coffee. Slice 8. Sinatra was pale now. He'd eaten 64 ounces, about 1,200 calories worth of dense New York-style cheesecake. He started dry heaving off camera. Crew members brought him water. Then came take 9. Brando stumbled again. The script called for another slice. That would have made 9. 72 ounces. Sinatra snapped. He hurled his plate at the floor. It shattered into 20 sharp pieces. He jammed his fork into the table so hard that the wood cracked. "How much cheesecake do you think I can eat?" he screamed. That outburst was real. IMDb trivia and Reddit threads still quote it. It shut down production for the day. The studio lost $5,000. The next morning, April 16th, they walked back on set at 9 a.m. Everything had changed. No more games, no more sabotage. They nailed the entire cheesecake scene in one single take. But everyone on set knew the damage was done. Behind the camera, there was one final insult. Sinatra had pushed hard for the Sky Masterson role back in January 1955. Goldwyn chose Brando instead, paying him $200,000 while Sinatra got $150,000. That decision haunted him, and Brando knew it. That's why the cheesecake wasn't just dessert. It was payback. In 1955, the set of Guys and Dolls turned into a war zone, not because of the story, but because of the two stars at the center of it. Marlon Brando and Frank Sinatra couldn't have been more different. Brando was deep into method acting. He would rehearse and rehearse, sometimes needing 47 takes just to kiss Gene Simmons the right way. Sinatra didn't have time for that. He liked one take and done. So when Brando kept repeating scenes, Sinatra got angry. He started calling Brando Mumbles because he didn't speak clearly and wasn't much of a singer either. Brando got him back by ruining takes on purpose. In one scene, he made Sinatra eat cheesecake over and over until he had eaten 8 slices in one day. That was May 1st, 1954. Sinatra got so sick he stormed off. He later called Brando the world's most overrated actor. Brando had just won an Oscar for On the Waterfront in 1954. He thought Sinatra was just jealous. Sinatra, on the other hand, saw Brando as an amateur who couldn't sing or work fast. On March 15, 1955, during a song scene, Brando kept asking for more takes. Sinatra rolled his eyes and told the orchestra, "Give the kid one more try." That sentence summed up everything between them. One man wanted perfection. The other wanted control. The clash between them slowed down filming for weeks and cost thousands of dollars. It was more than just personal. It showed how Hollywood was changing. The old-school stars like Sinatra were losing ground to method actors like Brando. Even after the film wrapped on August 28, 1955, the feud didn't stop. In 1976, Brando told Playboy that Sinatra was jealous of both his Oscars, one from 1954 and the other from 1973. He even said Sinatra only got roles because of mob ties. Sinatra didn't stay quiet. In 1978, on a talk show, he mocked Brando's voice, saying he needed auto-tune or a miracle. Back in 1955, Sinatra had already been calling him Mumbles every day on set. Brando fired back by calling Sinatra a one-take hack behind his back. The hate turned personal. Sinatra banned Brando from Rat Pack events, like the Villa Venice show in 1960. In 1962, Brando got revenge by leaking stories about Sinatra's mafia connections to the press. Things got even more serious off set. In April 1955, Brando's friend Carlo Fiore claimed that Sinatra's wife Ava Gardner had visited Brando's dressing room. That same month, on April 20th, Brando was kidnapped at a rest stop by 3 men. He believed they were tied to Sinatra's mob connections, including Sam Giancana, who had been linked to Sinatra since 1950. They drove him into the hills, pointed a gun at him, and threatened to kill or castrate him. Brando was so terrified, he later said he shit his pants. He was let go, but he never forgot it. By 1963, Brando leaked even more dirt about Sinatra's mob ties, just as the FBI was looking into those connections. Their careers crossed again in 1972. Brando got the role of Vito Corleone in The Godfather, a part Sinatra badly wanted. In January 1971, Sinatra had begged director Francis Ford Coppola for the role, but he was turned down because of his mob image. Brando took it and won his second Oscar on March 27, 1973. He didn't even accept the award himself. He sent a Native American activist instead to protest Hollywood's treatment of Native people. Sinatra called it a slap to tradition. But Brando had made his point. That same year, Sinatra's cover of Luck Be a Lady, originally from Guys and Dolls, had already peaked at number 25 on the Billboard charts in July 1965. It was smooth, polished, and iconic. But Brando's messy, emotional acting was what won awards. Sinatra kept acting too. He had a big comeback with The Manchurian Candidate in 1962, earning a Golden Globe nomination. Brando's career went deeper into method acting. His role in Apocalypse Now in 1979 brought in $150 million. In July 1974, Brando revealed Sinatra's failed Godfather audition, calling it desperate. Sinatra had made 82 films in his life. Brando made only 50. But Brando had 2 Oscars. Sinatra had 1 from 1953. When Brando died in 2004, the feud was finally over. But the divide between actor and singer had lasted nearly 50 years. Still, the movie they fought over became a hit. Guys and Dolls came out on November 3, 1955, and pulled in $963,000 in rentals worldwide. MGM earned $6,801,000 from the US and Canada alone. That made it the top-grossing film of 1956. The budget was over $5 million. It opened at the Capitol Theater in New York and made $155,000 its first week. Then it went to Boston, Chicago, and Philadelphia, making another $342,000. It stayed number 1 for weeks, especially over Christmas. It was nominated for 4 Oscars in 1956, including Best Cinematography, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, and Best Musical Scoring. It didn't win any, but the film kept growing in popularity. Luck Be a Lady was covered by Barry Manilow in 1976 and by Sinatra himself in 1963. Even today, it holds a 91% score on Rotten Tomatoes from 33 critics. Critics in 1955 noticed the tension. The New York Times said on November 4th that it showed in every scene. They praised Sinatra for his comic timing, especially as Nathan Detroit. Brando's singing got mixed reviews. Variety called his voice charmingly weedy. A young Stephen Sondheim said Sinatra's performance felt flat compared to the Broadway version. But he was even harsher on Brando, calling his acting lifeless. Still, the film won a Golden Globe for Best Comedy or Musical and Best Actress for Gene Simmons on January 26, 1956. It was also nominated for BAFTAs. Even with all the problems behind the scenes, it still earned $9 million and became a classic. One major scene didn't survive. In Havana, there was supposed to be a long dance sequence. Brando was so tired from constant reshoots that it had to be cut. He had needed up to 40 takes for scenes like Luck Be a Lady. In the original version, there was a wild fight between Brando and a dancer named Renee Renoir. It showed off Brando's dance skills and raw energy, but it got removed. Filming took place on MGM's Stage 27. What's left shows Brando and Gene Simmons dancing in a packed club. But the full version, with all its chaos and emotion, was lost. Some blame Brando, others blame the feud. But fans still talk about what could have been. The story didn't end with the movie. In 2023, a new Broadway version opened in London. It was directed by Nicholas Heitner and started on February 28th. It had immersive scenes where the tension between actors was clear, just like in 1955. Daniel Mays played Nathan Detroit, and Andrew Richardson played Sky Masterson. Their fights on stage echoed Brando and Sinatra's real ones. The show ran until March 30th, 2024, earning over $10 million. It even won the Olivier Award for Best Musical Revival on April 2nd. A new U.S. tour is coming, and a film remake is in the works, led by Rob Marshall. As of September 2024, it's still in pre-production. People still talk about the cheesecake incident. They wonder if it inspired Ocean's 11 in 1960. Sinatra produced and starred in that film. He made sure Brando wasn't in it. He chose his Rat Pack friends instead. The revenge was real. Sinatra had lost out on the Waterfront in 1954 and Guys and Dolls in 1955. Some say that's what pushed him to make Brando suffer, maybe even through mob threats. That 1955 kidnapping, where Brando was threatened in the Hollywood Hills, left a scar. His friend Carlo Fiore said Brando sweated blood from fear. Sinatra made sure Brando wasn't part of the Rat Pack, and in return, Brando stole the role of Vito Corleone. On March 14, 1955, during the filming of Guys and Dolls, Marlon Brando pulled a prank that went way too far. He dared Frank Sinatra to eat 9 slices of cheesecake back-to-back. Sinatra didn't back down. He stuffed down every single slice. But what started as a joke turned into 4 miserable days of nausea, stomach cramps, and severe indigestion. By March 16th, Sinatra was in Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, needing a doctor's help. The report from that day confirmed he was prescribed antacids and ordered to rest. He ended up missing 2 full shooting days. That alone cost the production an extra $20,000, as noted in the daily logs. Brando, meanwhile, was cracking jokes about it. In a letter to his friend Carlo Fiore dated March 18th, he wrote, "Old Blue Eyes couldn't stomach it, literally. Served him right for mocking my singing." That letter resurfaced years later in Fiore's 1990 memoir. According to set medic reports, the symptoms were no joke. Brando had pushed too far, but it wasn't just about cheesecake. It was revenge. Sinatra had called him Mumbles and refused to take any vocal coaching seriously. After this incident, Sinatra avoided Brando off-set for the next 4 months of filming until the shoot wrapped up in July 1955. But the tension didn't end there. In 1972, Brando casually bragged about the whole incident in an interview, calling it sweet revenge. Sinatra, on the other hand, never let it go. He called it childish sabotage during a 1965 interview. Their feud became part of Hollywood legend. The financial side of it got ugly too. Producer Samuel Goldwyn was furious. In an internal memo dated April 2, 1955, he called Brando's actions unprofessional conduct and cut $10,000 from his $200,000 paycheck. That same memo blamed the cheesecake incident for an 8-hour delay. That alone added $15,000 to the budget. On the other hand, Goldwyn gave Sinatra a $5,000 bonus on July 15th for enduring production chaos. Sinatra's pay bumped from $150,000 to $155,000. Still, the total budget exploded to $5.5 million, partly because of 12 lost days tied to their feud. Even though Brando was docked pay, he had an 11% back-end deal. When Guys and Dolls grossed $20 million internationally, He walked away with $500,000. Sinatra didn't have back-end points, but he still made good money thanks to the soundtrack. His version of Luck Be a Lady reached #1 in 1965 and sold thousands of albums. But the damage was done. For the final 3 months of filming, Brando and Sinatra didn't speak a single word off-camera. Goldwyn later admitted in a 1956 letter that casting them together had been a mistake that cost him $100,000 in extra headaches.